So, Lorenzo, I'm going to introduce you. It's first and foremost, thank you so much, my good friend, for taking time to be with us. You know, I asked Lorenzo some months ago when it was actually probably even more than COVID being an issue. It was more the oil and gas industry was a big issue at the moment. And he said, Richard, he goes, things are a bit crazy at the moment, but I'm going to do what I can. And sure enough, I circled back and immediately Lorenzo said, we're going to make this happen. And here we are tonight. So I'm so appreciative. Lorenzo, thank you so much. Lorenzo Simonelli, named chairman of the board of Baker Hughes in October 2017. President and CEO since the company's creation in 2017. He's oversaw a successful merger of the GE Oil and Gas with Baker Hughes. And since 2013, he served as the president and CEO of GE Oil and Gas. Previously, Simonelli served as president, CEO of GE Transportation, CFO, Americas for GE Consumer and Industrial, and joined GE's financial management program all the way back in 1994. He serves on the board also of CNH Industries. Originally from Tuscany, Italy, he has his degree in business economics, a graduate of Cardiff University in South Wales. Again, I'm so happy and so fortunate, you know, Lorenzo, that you've decided to join us this evening. Mays Business School, Texas A&M University. Thank you so much and welcome, my friend.
Well, no, thank you very much. And given that Baker Hughes is located here in Houston, Texas, we like A&M a lot. And so I'm actually recruiting tonight. So that's what I'm here to do and make sure that you're all coming to Baker Hughes.
That's awesome. That's music to our ears, I assure you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again. We'll get right to it. My first question for you, Lorenzo, getting to know you a bit more on a personal level. I'd like to first of all know, just basically, you know, what do you do right now? Like, as far as from the perspective of outside of your work, just what are you doing right now for fun?
Well, look, I think we mentioned I'm from Italy, so I do enjoy wine and I enjoy wine tasting and also becoming a connoisseur of the various California wines. And also in Texas, there's Fredericksburg, and so getting acquainted with Texan wines. So that's one thing. I do like a wine glass here or there, but also staying fit and healthy. And I think it's very important that also during times of ambiguity, the volatility that's out there, that your mind is fresh and you stay active from a also fitness perspective. So I play a lot of tennis. I do gym every day. I'm an early riser, so don't get surprised if you know, people who work with me say he gets up at 3:30 in the morning, because it's true. I've been fortunate enough that I don't need a lot of sleep. So I tend to sleep about 4 hours a night, and that's just been a habit since I was a youngster. I don't impose that on my colleagues, I have to say. So, but for me, it's, I'll give you a little fun story. You know, when I was growing up, I was 11 years of age, and I was watching a program, and the program said, look, if you just live a normal life, you'll sleep 25 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I can halve that, I'm going to get to see a lot more of the world. And that's what I've always been passionate about, is being able to see as much of the world and live life to the full. So that's why I sort of train myself on little sleep. But no, doing what everybody else is doing, you know, staying safe, making sure that staying active, and also navigating uncharted waters. I think all of us as leaders, for as much as we say, you know, we've been there before, we've done this before, I can truly say that the last 8 months, I've never experienced so much volatility and also had to manage a multitude of facets at the same time. So it's been a learning experience for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. It's a real challenge to, let's say, manage the ambiguity currently. There's no question about that. Excellent. Okay, well, so how are you managing a company remotely when you're usually on a plane or in a foreign country every other week? What have you needed to learn yourself to be an effective leader?
So, and Richard, maybe it'll be useful for the class to know that I first met Richard out in Kazakhstan. And just to give you a sense of, since probably for the last 20 years, I've spent about 70% of my time on the road. traveling amongst all the different countries, and we're in 120 countries, so I get to go to a lot of different locations. And this has been the longest stretch of time that I haven't been outside of the United States. Since March 4th, I have been solidly here and predominantly in Houston, Texas, the whole time, except for a couple of days out in California. And it's required me to learn new facets of technology. It's required me to enhance my communication skills. It's really brought on an essence of how do you communicate and relate to not just your employees, but your customers when you're not next to them. And it's required a whole new skill set. I think I've benefited from the fact that a lot of the relationships I've built in the past. And so going virtual hasn't been that much of a problem, but I can see it when you're meeting new people virtually. It's not the same chemistry, and you have to bring on new traits, new skills to be able to relate to them. The other thing is learning mute on, mute off. Look, it's no joke. It's incredible how many people struggle to remember to take the mute off. I did it just when I started this. You know, you're on Zoom, it's different than Teams, it's different than Google Meets, and you got to learn the different applications and the different capabilities, and also how to interact with people. You know, the raising of the hand function, because when you're doing such as a call like this, where you've got a number of different participants, it can be very difficult to make sure everybody's included and everybody's participating. And I mentioned before, we've had virtual board meetings now. And I tried one where we had several people in a room and several people on, you know, a virtual tool. And it was very tough because then the people in the room dominated the discussion. And so it was much easier just to go all virtual. So we decided, let's not have, you know, a mix. Let's just go one way or the other way. And we've been going virtual for the last 3 board meetings. But like yourselves, I think it's getting acquainted with technology. I think it's said we've progressed 8 years in the advancement of adopting technologies that existed. And it's going to change the employee footprint and the workplace for the future generations and decades. I mean, that's definitely going to be an outcome of what we've learned from COVID and the pandemic. And I think you've got to look at the positives. The positives are we know technology can work. We know we can interact. You don't need to travel across the pond for a dinner anymore. You can have virtual tools that allow you also a better work-life balance.
Yeah, and I think that that's definitely one thing that's certainly come from this. You know, getting more stuff.
Richard, your audio is not good.
Yeah, I think someone must have a microphone or something. So Lorenzo, Baker Hughes is positioning itself as an energy technology company, but many still know it as an oil field company with Texas roots. Why the change, and what has been the reaction so far?
So I don't know how many of you are aware of Baker Hughes, so maybe let me just start. The history of the company is long. It's been around for over 100 years. If you know Howard Hughes and the Hughes family, it really does originate from the Hughes family and also the Baker family, 2 great scientists and entrepreneurs that created the drill bits, created what today is the modern way in which drilling takes place. We merged in 2017 with G Oil and Gas, which is more on the equipment side and more of the gas turbines, also the compressors. And the reason was to create what we believe was important is an energy technology company. I think going back to one of the outcomes of COVID, it's also been, I think, an acceleration of people's desire to see climate change tackled and also carbon footprint tackled. And if you see the benefits, you know, nature and the environment has actually reborn during the last few months. You now can see, you know, the Mount of Everest from Kathmandu. You can actually see dolphins in the Bay of Venice. And we as a company are there to help decarbonize energy. And that's what we do across the board. And I think you see a lot of companies saying they want to be net zero carbon emissions. how do they get there is by really adopting our technology, our products, our services. And that's what we're striving to do. It's not to be an oilfield services, but it's to enable the international oil companies, the national oil companies, the independents to help reduce the carbon footprint as we go towards really managing climate change in the future. And I think there's no negating that, you know, climate change is real, and it has to be mitigated, and that's what we're here to do with the partnerships that we have.
Thank you. Sound business strategy seems to have been upended in 2020 with so much unpredictability. How have you had to rethink your strategy due to COVID-19, as well as the much publicized oil price war earlier this year?
Well, if there's one thing I've learned is never try and predict the oil price. You're always going to be wrong. And by the way, if any of you can predict it, you should not be studying right now. You should be making a ton of money, because I've been wrong every single time I've tried to predict it. But from a strategy perspective, look, first and foremost, as you look at what's happened this year, it's been about making sure we take care of our employees. It's been around taking care of our customers and continuing operations. We are a strategically significant business. We've been designated in 120 countries as being vital to energy being there and also the infrastructure. So to us, it's been, okay, managing ongoing operations, making sure our teams are safe out there, and also we're providing to our customers. And then also being agile. Look, we have to make some tough decisions. And I think restructuring is never nice, but it's necessary if you're looking at the vitality of a company that's going through a crisis. And when you have oil price going from, you know, $65 to then spreads of spot pricing that's negative, if you go back to May, you know, people were giving money for people to take the oil that was going to be produced. So there is, you know, an aspect of having to take the tough decisions, communicating it. But our strategy with regards to being an energy technology company, the macro trend that we see hasn't changed. And I think as a leader, you have to be able to balance short term with long term and also see the bigger picture. And look, for all of you here, oil and gas is going to be essential from an energy mix perspective as we go forward. If you look at the demand for energy is increasing, and so, you know, to suddenly just shelve it or say that it's bad is wrong as well. So we've got to manage for long term, and that's what we do at the leadership level, is balance those, and so that we take decisions that are necessary to manage the current short term, but then also stay on course for the long term. And that requires a lot of open communication, a lot of, I think, quick decisions, but also a lot of transparency with your employees, with your customers, and also humility. You're not going to know everything. So you just also listen and take criticism as well as stay on track.
Okay. Many oil and gas companies, Lorenzo, are feeling pressure to support the energy transition and emissions reductions. Nearly 2 years ago, Baker Hughes committed to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And your company is really leading the oilfield services industry with drastic change. How are you managing that from an operational and cultural perspective with your employees?
So, first of all, let me just check, because a little note said your speaker is not working. Please check your connection or use a different speaker. Is that me or you, Richard?
At the moment, it seems a little bit better.
Okay. Hopefully, maybe I get closer. This is, again, modern technology and the aspect of the virtual world. But look, what you mentioned about energy technology company and also the energy transition, we made a clear statement in 2019 that we were going to be 50% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Now, what does that mean? Because I think there's a lot of confusion relative to what net zero really means. And that means you're not emitting more than you consume. And so you're net zero relative to CO2. And the way we are shifting from usage of gas to capturing gas, the usage of LEDs as opposed to incandescent. And so internally, in ourselves, also the fleet management going to electric. So all of these elements is what we use to make sure that we're going towards the 50% reduction by 2030. And, you know, we've made great strides since 2012, and we're already down over 30% in our emissions. So also, we're able to help our customers, and we're able to help them with the efficient turbines, the compressors, by going into areas such as carbon capture under sequestration, the uses of hydrogen, and some of the new energy mix that's going to be taking place in the decades ahead. And so we're at the forefront. What we've got to do is measure, be able to capture.
The speaker's not working. Your audio was not working.
The speakers are doing like a hiccup again.
Looks like Lorenzo got stuck now.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Lorenzo, can you hear us?
Can you hear Richard?
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's still kind of like staticky. Yeah, same.
Okay, I'm raising the volume here to see if. I think on a timing horizon, everybody's using their broadband at this time.
I think you might be right.
But now
Maybe everybody in your house, Lorenzo.
Well, no, because I'm here and my wife's here, but that's about it. So,
Or either that or you're on Suddenlink, one or the other.
Oh.
Okay. No, it's all good. That was great, Lorenzo. Thanks. On a similar topic, what are the technologies you're seeing that have real potential to reduce emissions, and where is the most opportunity, do you think?
well, look, I think, again, if you look at CCUS, again, that's a way in which we can reduce the emissions, and it's something that's been around, but the cost point hasn't been attractive, and that you're getting some new technologies and processes that is allowing us to actually deploy carbon capture. And then as you look towards new fuel sources and energy storage, so renewables you've all heard about, solar, wind, they're going to be continuing to increase. You look at geothermal, which is really, again, a source from hot water and the volcanic activity that's very much used in certain countries. You look at also energy storage and capturing from the renewable sources. That's going to be beneficial. But I think longer term, hydrogen is going to be a winner. And we think that hydrogen is very abundant. Historically, it's been a volatile gas, as you can think of some of the experiences with it being flammable. But there's ways to liquefy it. There's ways to control it now. And you've seen a number of announcements relative to hydrogen. And I'd say hydrogen is something that in the energy mix will continue to increase. But look, oil and gas will continue to be there as well. And in the short term, natural gas, which is very abundant, is going to be a key aspect with liquefied natural gas that can be utilized for the developing world. And you've seen that consumption increase in China. But those are some of the really energy mix that we have within our portfolio, and we help our customers develop.
Great. I want to ask you, our students are all going to be entering the workforce in the next several years, in the next 2 years, let's say. What would make you want to hire them for Baker Hughes?
So first and foremost, the capability you bring from your learnings, and also the aspect of desire to change what is currently taking place. I think the important thing is the enthusiasm, the energy, and the intellect of thinking differently. The generation of today has to lead us through some of the dynamic changes that are going to take place. And inclusion and diversity is extremely important in getting the best thoughts and also the best outcomes. And I think if you look at the oil and gas industry, historically, it's not been as diverse as many others. And we've got to drive that diversity, both from a global perspective, but also from a way of thinking. And so that's what we're looking for. It's really diversity of thought. Obviously, it's taken for granted that given your educational base, you know how to execute. And it's really, that's a ticket for entry, that you've got the grades and you've got the execution focus, but then it's how you think differently and how you can actually lead change. It's very important to be a self-starter, I think, especially joining a company.
Yeah, and I would say that, and that's even, I would say, more magnified even, with this whole COVID-19 and working from home. I think it's even more so the importance of being a self-starter and being someone who's, doesn't need someone like watching over them, and is just knows that he or she needs to really, be going all the time. And you know what I'm saying? Lorenzo, what have you learned from your team during the COVID-19 crisis? What has surprised you the most?
So the nice thing is you, first of all, get to know the resilience that they have, and also the way in which you come together as a team. When you're running around, it's very easy sometimes to be disjointed, not be aligned. And it's critical that when you're in a moment of complete change and also volatility, that the team comes together. So that's one thing that I've learned, is really the coming together and also thinking out of the box. The way in which you have social hours with your employees, the way in which, you used to go out to dinner, but now you maybe have a dinner over a Teams meeting, or you have a session, which is really just to see how people feel and how they're doing. Also, the way in which we applied remote operations into the tasks that we do. So we've been drilling 70% of our wells through remote operations. And that was unheard of before. We've actually completed validation and testing and customer acceptance of pieces of equipment that are hundreds of millions of dollars with nobody being at the site. And so that capability is something that's come through. And, in the time of most need, you see who's an entrepreneur, you see who's a self-starter, you see how people work and communicate. I go back and I said at the beginning, I don't think I ever anticipated the number of challenges and having to adapt. You actually see it during the course of this year, all of the skills that you've learned in the past. So have I had to do restructuring before? Yes. Have I had to do restructuring during a pandemic? No. Have I had to do restructuring during a pandemic and a crisis in the energy markets? No. But the team comes together and actually finds ways to get it done. And that's the spirit of the team coming through.
That's awesome. If I was to ask you to give our students one piece of advice that they can kind of take with them and, sort of help them, let's say maybe, as they either go back into their careers or they start their careers, what would you give them for advice? What would you tell them?
So the first thing I'd say is always be willing to listen and always be willing to receive feedback from your mentors and also your mentees, and develop the network that you can entrust upon to help you. There is no one individual that knows everything. And I think as leaders, sometimes you can always be arrogant or have a sense of entitlement of I know best. And I think in times like this, the most important thing is that you actually have a team around you and you know how to listen and that you know how to communicate and reach out. I go back to, it would have been very easy for me just to sit in the office or sit at home and say, look, I can't communicate with anybody. I'm going through the same things you are, etc. People want leaders, and they want people that actually give them guidance and set a direction and a path. That's what you, through your studies and also as you go out into the workplace, are going to have to do, and it starts from day one. And so I think, make sure that you're developing that network and you keep it, maintain it, but then also make sure that you continue to be decisive in your decisions that you take.
That's great advice. I can tell you, from one of the posts that I put on LinkedIn leading up to this, announcing people that you were going to be on here, it was quite impressive to hear from some of your employees, what they had to say about you, people that know you. I think it speaks volumes to you as a leader, Lorenzo. I just want to let you know that. If it's okay with you, Lorenzo, we've got some time for Q&A. I'd like to open it up to our audience. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool. And just let me check and make sure. Can you hear me better now, or still?
It's still pretty bad.
Okay. Do you want me to try and dial back in? Just and
Sure.
see it?
If you don't mind, we'll wait here. Yeah, sure.
I don't mind at all. I prefer to dial back in and let's see.
Yeah,
If it's,
that'd be great.
okay, thanks.
You're a tough man, Richard, if you're still taking these calls outdoors.
Yeah, it's been triple digits out here in the
I know it is. You're getting a little bit roasty looking there.
It gets worse from about 3 o'clock on, but thankfully most of the day I was actually in the office at the university. But now at 6, it's really brutal because of where the sun is located. It's actually worse for me at this time in the evening.
Yeah. Well, you're about medium rare right now. We'll see what it is when you finish. So
that's great. Lorenzo, you back?
How you doing, Tim?
doing great, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're looking well.
Thank you. Just meetings the whole day.
Yeah, that's all right.
I say that I'm getting so much used to my this reclusive Zoom existence.
I know.
That once the pandemic is done, I will have to attend classes to learn to re-socialize and learn how to deal with actual human beings face to face.
Yeah, I know. It's true indeed. You know, there's Richard, I'm seeing a lot of nice questions on the chat or some kind of, some typewritten questions. They're all quite good questions. So, I've got a few too. One of the questions I had for Lorenzo is, I think we've all learned things through this COVID-19 time. And my question is, what do you think will stay? Because I think we've learned some things that are good things, efficiencies that will probably last, past COVID-19 time.
Yeah.
No doubt. For those of you who do not know Tim is, first of all, he's a very, very close personal friend of mine that I got to know real well in Kazakhstan. He is a major, major oil and gas player. He had, I think, 38 years, Tim, at Chevron, and was basically the CEO of kind of the major oil and gas company in Kazakhstan.
And one of my key customers.
For some time. Oh, and what, Lorenzo, and one of your key customers?
Yes.
Absolutely. Hey, we can hear you better now, my friend.
All right, I changed devices. So now we went from the computer to the iPad. So hopefully this works better, and I apologize for the inconvenience before.
Yeah, it's clear now,
No
Lorenzo.
worries. We could hear most of what you were saying, and I think we captured it also in the captioning. It was just staticky, so it was a bit tough to,
Oh, my words of wisdom, my gosh.
I know. We're gonna have to
got
go
him,
back.
Lorenzo. I got him.
Lorenzo, is it fine then if we hit you with some questions from the audience?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. Tim, did you want to ask that question real quick?
Yeah, Lorenzo, I just curious. I know that we've all learned things through this COVID-19 experience. What in particular do you think will last past COVID-19? What efficiencies have you found? Will you travel less? Will you eat less? I mean, what do you think will last?
So I think the traveling less will be commonplace. And I look to the efficiency of the digital tools that we can utilize. It means once you have a relationship, customers, partners, they're much more willing to actually have a discussion over Teams or over Zoom. And so I anticipate that my travel schedule from being, 70 to 80% on a year will actually go down by 50%. And I think most important is the formal first introductions, but then afterwards you can use some of the modern technology.
Yeah.
I also think what will change is the work environment that we're in. There used to be the view of you had to have an office.
Mm-hmm.
And that culturally was also an aspect understood by all. I think people are seeing now that more than anything, they want flexibility.
Yeah.
Which means hot desking will become much more commonplace. And also, I wouldn't want to be in the commercial real estate market right now. I think, it's a lot of office buildings are not going to be utilized to the same degree as they were previously.
Yeah.
And as long as you're providing your employees the flexibility, I think they'll be working from home as well as from hot desking, and also the type of work that's taking place. And the reality is, with less travel, with more things being remote operations, the skill base of your employees is probably going to have to be changed. Yeah. And it's going to be also, I think, a challenge to move up in the skill levels, because, more software engineers are going to be required, more applications, and you're going to see less of the need for personal assistants. I mean, I see, a lot less need of somebody that's dedicated 100%. Yeah. And that's going to become a changing in the workforce as well. So, some of the processes that were done have all been automated now. And I think it's just a reality that we've got to face into. And also we've got to help our employees go through it together.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Yeah, no, this is amazing, Lorenzo. It's like an MBA. Our students are getting an MBA this evening. Okay. This is great. Thanks, Lorenzo. Good question, Tim. Okay, so Anil Kumar asks, and I think it's along the lines of what you were just talking about, actually. Is there a skill gap in the oil and gas industry? What skills can entry-level and mid-level professionals use in the future?
So there is a skills gap. And look, when it comes to math, science, engineering, software applications, digital transformation, that's where we need more of that skill base to come into the oil and gas industry. I love the oil and gas industry, but it's also fair to say that it doesn't innovate as quickly as it can from the outside. It does things internally very well, and you look at unconventional and what's happened from a fracking perspective, but when you think about leapfrogging and actually applying lean manufacturing, being able to apply digital transformation, the oil and gas industry has not been as advanced as some of the others. And part of it is it's not necessarily the most attractive industry to go into anymore. You go through cycles of hiring and firing. That's what it's known for. You are in locations that are not necessarily geographically the most attractive. And we've got to do a better job as an industry to promote the new type of skills, because energy is fundamental to the world. I mean, there is no development without the oil and gas industry. And even if you've got changes in the energy mix, remember 40% of the energy mix is still going to come from oil and gas, and with the increasing demand that's out there of electricity, you know, that's going to be around for a long time. So we got to promote the skills and also the diversity and be much more of an inclusive industry. And, you know, I look at one thing on a regular basis, just on gender diversity. Oil and gas industry is probably one of the laggards from a gender diversity. You take it a step further in global diversity, again, not very globally diverse. So those are the things that we're working on. And I think all of you have great opportunities to enter into the industry. It's a question of, I would ask you is, do you find the oil and gas industry, do you find energy attractive? And why not, when it's probably the most important industry that there is out there?
Excellent. Aaliyah, one of our MS Business students, asks you, how do you spark the discussion of being energy efficient and going green when some do not believe in it?
You know, I think over time, it's become less of a debate and it's actually understood. I don't think even amongst the oil and gas international oil companies, the national oil companies, everybody's saying that we have to tackle decarbonization. We know that there's an impact on the environment. Now, some people say it's bigger than others, but I think there is a common view that we have to drive down the carbon footprint, and not just within our own industry, but across the whole value chain, which is really when you look at scope 3 emissions, because it's not just the energy industry by itself. It's also the aviation industry. It's the trucking industry. And it's a combination of all of those working together to actually enable decarbonization. So the skeptics out there are decreasing. And I think as you go forward, in particular when you're in Europe, you're in Asia Pacific, the discussion is sustainability. And this is a key element to sustainability as we go forward. So I think that ship has already sailed. People understand we've got to go towards decarbonization.
Fantastic. Craig Rzaev, originally actually from Azerbaijan, oil and gas country. He's one of our full-time MBAs. He's asking you, we are seeing European super majors such as BP and Total aiming net zero, while American super majors, Exxon, Chevron, are remaining focused on fossil fuels. As a global organization, how do you prioritize your business to meet the demands of different types of customers?
So there's a saying, the customer's always right. And we're here to serve our partners and customers. And first of all, Azerbaijan, Baku, a very rich oil and gas country. And look, oil and gas is still a role that's got to be played in the energy mix. So I don't necessarily agree with the aspect of Chevron and Exxon not doing anything. They may not be as vocal as the Europeans, but sustainability is on their radar screen. And you may have even seen some of the press where Exxon is working with some universities on a really CO2 absorption molecule. Chevron has within their projects a view to reduce CO2 emissions and actually is very much looking to not have flare gas taking place. So Tim can speak to it as well because he ran one of the largest projects for Chevron. Everybody's focused on it. Some are more vocal than others, but also because of the stakeholders they have. And if you go to Europe, you know, a European major not talking about sustainability all the time would be very dangerous from a stakeholder perspective. But I think everybody's actually working on it. At least that's what we're seeing in the partnerships that we have with them. And that's the main aspect. And so we know that we still will be in oil and gas for many years going forward, but we're going to decarbonize oil and gas. And that's a process towards net zero.
Fantastic. Pooja, one of our second year MBAs, asks, as a CEO, how important is deep analytics and machine learning insights to you? How efficiently Baker Hughes uses the currently available data to predict, forecast profits or targets?
I think it is a theme that is continuously growing. And in fact, we have a partnership with C3.ai, which is the leading artificial intelligence provider. And we start to use their capabilities on our inventory management, our collections, and also understanding the predictability of unplanned downtime within our machinery and equipment. So it is very, very important. And only now, with the capability of computing, as well as some of the artificial intelligence and the digestion capabilities that we have, are we truly able to understand the benefit of all the data that we've collected. When I said before, you know, skills that are required within our industry, you look at data analytics, data scientists, you look at the capability of managing data, that's key, because one thing we have a lot of is data, because we've actually put sensors on virtually everything. Back in the early 2000s, there was the concept of a digital oil field, and the industry went and placed a lot of sensors across the board. We only utilize about 2 to 3% of the data to actually make informed decisions. So it's ripe, and it actually drives a tremendous amount of efficiency and productivity. We're at the early stages. I mean, there is the next leap in efficiency and productivity doesn't come from a piece of equipment. It comes from data analytics, artificial intelligence, condition monitoring, and everything that you can do from a digital transformation.
Great. Yeah, Karen Fireman was asking a similar question related to analytics and how you're going to use it at BKR. I think that's pretty much what you just kind of alluded to as well. We also have a question here from Lawrence, who's a first-year MBA. What is the plan for Baker on the drilling side? Do you see companies accepting fully remote? And do you see Baker remote operations going away from it, or going away with the E-Track?
So again, we have 70% of our wells that are drilled today are drilled from remote operations. And if you look at the impact of the pandemic, it's actually caused an acceleration in the adoption by our customers, because you've had to limit the number of people that are actually out there on the platform. You want to reduce the movement of people. And so we're able to do it from a beacon site, either here in Houston, in KL, in Florence, etc. And I think customers are seeing the benefit of it. It's early days, but you're going to see increased remote operations. And you're going to see increased usage of remote applications such as drones, also the way in which inspections take place. And I think, again, the whole aspect of being able to de-man operations has always been the holy grail of productivity in this industry. And that's where we're headed. So you won't have as many people out there in the field. You'll have them in an office, you'll have them at home, and they'll be drilling a perfect well. And we also have some of the best drilling capability that can be driven from remote locations. So it's definitely something that's occurring and will continue to increase in scope.
That's impressive. Christiana, look, and you kind of you talked about hydrogen, but her question's a bit more broad, I think. Where do you think like the oil and gas is going in 10 years, considering all of the investments being made into alternative energy like solar power, wind, and others?
So you got to put things into context, and the generational changes take generations. If you look back, you think of the way in which we used to get energy beforehand, and it used to be the burning of wood. Then we went into the coal arena. And some of you may think that coal is already no longer used. Well, 36% of the energy comes still from coal. And then you started to have oil, and now you have gas, and you have renewables. oil and gas will be here for a number of decades going forward. And the increasing demand of energy means that its participation in the energy mix will actually stay relatively stable, and between 35 to 40% coming from oil and gas. What you'll see is an acceleration over time, and in 50 years time, 30 years time, that's when renewables and hydrogen, because the infrastructure required is so different. And you've got to think of things as being generational changes. And we're investing now because we're a company that's been around for 100 years. And so we want to be here for the next 100 years. But I think the pace of change is accelerating. But just like coal has been used since the early 1900s, that you've looked at 120 years and it's still 35% of the energy mix. You're going to have oil and gas, and hydrogen will take its time, and then it will become 10%. Renewables today is only 8% of the energy mix. You can fill the world with wind turbines, solar panels. It's not going to give you the energy that's required. So that's the only thing I'd say is make sure that we don't jump to conclusions that oil and gas is bad or coal is bad. We need to decarbonize and then shift towards hydrogen, increasing use of renewables, geothermal, and these are the applications that will enable us to go forward.
Fantastic. Colton, thanks you very much for your time and your very wise words, Lorenzo. And he asks, where do you see Baker Hughes in the next 5 years? What major changes have occurred recently that drive the direction of the company in the future?
So, look, I think there's going to be a shift towards, again, the tools and the applications that allow us to help our customers get to net zero. 2050 is just around the corner. And when you think of the oil and gas industry, that's the type of investment span that you're looking at. You look at 20 to 30 years because they're large investments. So that's what we've got to help them on. I think we're going to be increasing our exposure from a chemical standpoint, non-metallic. Hydrocarbons, and in particular oil, will be utilized more on the replacement of metals, where there's a huge concentration of CO2 when used, but you can actually have composites that actually are as durable, more lightweight, more flexible than some of the metals. So I think you'll see an increasing use of chemicals and non-metallic, and then assisting the industries as they go through their net zero campaign. So oil and gas will stay stable. Gas will continue to probably modestly increase as they provide the, you look at the changes, they'll win to begin with. And we're the energy technology company. So our role is to continue to provide the technologies that will help us decarbonize.
Great. Hermano asks, what are the biggest challenges in the LNG industry, and how are you adapting to them?
So if you look at where LNG is today, there's about 450 million tons of LNG capacity, and we need to get to 650 million tons. So China, India, a number of the other Asian countries are looking at LNG as being their bridge towards then renewables and also hydrogen. You have some politics that take place in the Western world where people are viewing gas as a bad thing, but as a carbon footprint, it's much less than coal. So we've got to educate. I think as an industry, one of the key things that we've got to do is better educate and have a better narrative relative to what we do. And LNG is part of that narrative. And, we've got a number of the LNG facilities that we provide equipment and services to. We see it as continuing growth area, but the biggest challenge is politics and making sure that the narrative is understood and we don't have misinformation. And I'm not critiquing anybody here, so I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. But there is sometimes a misunderstanding where people view hydrocarbons as being a bad thing. that being said, everything around you is essentially hydrocarbon. If you think about the clothes you wear, you think about the shampoo, you think about a lot of the areas, you also think about a Tesla car. Well, the electricity doesn't just appear. And I think there's many people that still need to have a better understanding of actually how energy is generated and also the whole value chain of that energy. And that's what we've got to do a better job of.
Great. I like what
Lorenzo,
you,
Tim, a quick comment.
oh, go ahead.
You know, with regard to LNG, I'm very concerned that the major oil companies have, you know, been scared by these price, you know, turbulence, and you know, they're making a 30 and 40 and $50 billion investments anymore. They're just getting, you know, they're getting scared on those things. And so ultimately you got to make money on LNG or it's not going to happen. And I'm concerned, you know, that the profit margin for the operator is really challenging for those big investments. So I think that's a major hurdle for LNG as well, not to mention political.
No, I would agree, Tim. I think we're seeing that natural gas pricing will gradually go back up, and also LNG will go back up. And some of the national oil companies are moving ahead with their projects as they see it as vital. And I think you know as well, the national oil companies take even a longer term view from a energy independence standpoint. So we haven't seen a drop off on any of the major LNG projects, and we still think that 2030 is going to be a considerable increase in LNG consumption.
Okay, hope they make money ultimately, because they're going to have to survive.
Yes, and I think we'll see an increase in natural gas as we go forward.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks, Tim, for that too. Joey, you're going to like Joey's. Joey says, I'm a 14-year employee of Schlumberger, working in the seismic E&P division, Western Gecko.
Yeah.
How do you see the need for new ventures in 10 plus years in the eyes of our customers? For example, the multi-client business, new seismic acquisition versus re-imaging existing seismic data, etc.
So I think, first of all, on the side of seismic and also identifying new resources for oil and gas, we're not seeing a lot of exploration or new exploration actually take place. We're anticipating that actually there'll be more brownfield and more extension of what we've already found. And there's plentiful amount of gas and oil that we know is out there. So I think where we're going to see more partnerships is actually on the efficiency and the productivity, and actually applying some of the new tools. So as you look at digital transformation, as you look at artificial intelligence, that's where we're seeing the growth and also the opportunity to partner together. I think, you know, you're at Schlumberger, which is a great company. There's, I think, more that we're going to see as having to partner together to provide what the customers need. And I think that's where the differentiation will be. We're all good in our own ways, but on a seismic specific, you know, I think we're not seeing a lot of seismic in the next few years or the next decade, given the amount that we already know is out there and also the new sources of energy.
Great. You did touch a little bit on artificial intelligence already, but Anil Kumar asks, what is the future of artificial intelligence in oil and gas industry? A lot of technology companies are assisting in well optimizations. What new skill set will be required?
Data scientists. It comes down to a huge need for data scientists and the ability to also understand what a platform of AI is. Today, the data's there, but you know, educating people how to write the algorithms, how to work with the platforms, that's going to be key. But I'll give you an example: inventory optimization. It's we use AI internally as well as with our customers. But a simple aspect of inventory optimization is, previously you would have had 100 parts that you maintained the stock of, and you did that based on the knowledge of people. Well, a person can never really know how much you need of 100 different parts. There's just too many combinations, and the mathematics behind it is far too complicated. So with the computing capability that's come in, with also AI as an aspect of anticipating and being able to run various variations, 10 to the 13, now you're getting an algorithm that you can apply, and you can take down your inventory, release cash, and actually become more efficient. That's where we're headed. It's really just an evolution of the computing capability, and then utilizing the algorithmic data reruns that artificial intelligence allows you to do.
Great. We got time for a few more. Jorge asks, how has the Baker Hughes oil rig count established a legacy for Baker Hughes in the industry? And what is the legacy you would like to leave Baker Hughes with?
So I once got asked the question whether I wanted to have Baker Hughes associated with the rig count. And given that it's been going down tumultuously over the course of the last few years, it is something that's grown over time. It's something that we take a lot of pride in being associated with. And it just goes to the history of how prevalent, drill bits were, and also the field operations were of Baker Hughes in the past. Do I think it's that relevant now? I don't think it's as relevant, and I don't think there's as much of a correlation between production and number of rigs as you historically saw, just because of the way productivity's changed. That being said, if I were to look at, where do I want to see Baker Hughes as my legacy, it's that we were able to have an impact and able to drive through technology, assisting our customers to get to net zero and actually making this planet a better place for us. And that means energy security, but it also means energy security with an environment that we want to live in.
Fantastic. This one will bring you back a little bit, Lorenzo. Adam asks, what major challenges did you face during the merger, and how those challenges have been resolved? In particular, trust and cultural differences between the two organizations.
So in any integration, culture is the most important element, and also being able to build a culture together. And you've got to be very upfront and make sure that it doesn't seem as one party overtaking the other party. And you've got to have a merger of equals and recognize the good things from each other. We came together in July of 17. If you know some of our history, we were majority shareholder was General Electric. By November of 2017, they said that they were going to sell us. So, there was a rallying cry within the company that actually accelerated the integration because of the situation we were in. So bringing together and actually standardizing processes quickly, benefiting from each other's different culture and forming our own values was very important. Again, I went to saying the aspect of a good leader is also having humility and understanding that you need to listen. It's critical in an integration as well as a large scale integration that you have that, and that you don't leave anybody by the side of the road, because you need everybody to come along with you.
Fantastic. Good words of wisdom there. One last question. Carbon capture has great potential to limit global carbon emissions, but its high cost has prevented from widespread mainstream use. Is Baker Hughes doing anything to lower costs?
So we are, in that we're looking at various different capabilities from a technology standpoint of changing the way in which CCUS takes place. I also think, though, as you've seen with the adoption of wind turbines, as you've seen with the adoption of solar panels, there is a government move, in particular in Europe and other locations, where they will place a subsidy to begin with to help that technology actually accelerate. And I think within CCUS as well as hydrogen, those are the stimulus that you'll see with projects coming online that haven't come online previously. And then, like's happened before, the cost will lower itself with the new technology that's applied. So I think the pattern that will be followed for CCUS, hydrogen, and other new energy mixes will be very similar to that of renewables.
Great. I did want to mention that Tim had to jump off a few minutes ago, and he said to you, it was great to see you. You did a super job and well done.
Thank you very much. And,
From your colleague. Hey, listen, Lorenzo, thank you so much. You're a special man. We really appreciate, you joining us today. It means a lot to our students, and, thank you and bravo for giving back. That's really cool of you. Arvind, do you want to say anything to Lorenzo before he leaves?
No, I just very much appreciate his coming and talking to our students. And I hope that this is not the first time. We have a facility, as you know, at City Center, right in the middle of the energy corridor, where we conduct our MS Analytics program, Executive MBA program, and Professional MBA program. And not only would we love the opportunity to be able to train some of your workforce, as you will hire some of our workforce from here, but I would also hope that we'll have the opportunity of getting you in one of our classes and talking to these executives. We'd very much like to establish that relationship with the new Baker Hughes. As we understand, I have always viewed it as an ONG service company like Schlumber and Halliburton, but you have clearly defined a new path for it as the energy technology company. And I'm very much intrigued by that. And I think that'll do the world a lot of good as well. So thank you very much on behalf of Mace Business School, Lorenzo.
Thank you, Arvind, and Richard, thank you. And I'll just maybe close out here from my side, just to thank you all for participating. Apologies for the technological hitch, but these are, modern times. And I think we're all getting used to those. I also would like to say, look, if you have an interest in energy technology, you're all going to be graduating at some point, and we've got open doors and looking for good people. And I truly believe that the most important thing is energy to the development of the world, but also to be able to have it from a carbon footprint perspective, net zero. And that's the journey that we're on, and we're going to get there all together. So Richard, look forward to seeing you soon. Arvind, I'll take you up on your offer, and thank you all for your participation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bravo.
Thanks again, my
Thanks.
friend. I'm at your beck and call, Lorenzo.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Thanks for participating, everyone.
Thanks, Richard.
You bet.
Bye.